If you are trying to attract love and call in the relationship of your dreams, I promise you, if you do this one thing, it doesn't matter if it's in 30 days from now or 90 days from now, you will have a much better chance of accomplishing just that. So what is this thing? It's simply loving yourself. Okay, now I know you've heard this before, but in this video, I'm going to give you a few ways in which you can actually practically implement this into your life. Okay, and explain to you sort of the energetic reasoning behind it. Okay, now, first and foremost, as I talked about in the last sort of partner attracting video, I explained that in order to attract somebody of a high caliber, right? Which I'm hoping that if you have this dream partner in mind, I hope that you're not, settling or, lowering your standards because you think it's more realistic, right? If you are trying to call in your dream partner, I hope that you are trying to call in everything that you actually want, right? And not downplaying that, okay? But again, if you are trying to call in this caliber of person, you best believe that they also want a high caliber of person, right? Now, high caliber doesn't always just mean beautiful on the outside. They are successful. They have a lot of friends, right? One of the most attractive qualities is somebody who is in love with themselves. And obviously not to an extreme level, right? But somebody who values themselves. Somebody who has a high sense of self-worth. Okay? And we can feel that in people, right? And it's because of the fact that we can feel that in people that it's a trait that we are attracted to. Because the opposite is also true. You can feel when somebody has a low sense of self-worth or low self-confidence, right? And it's not always the most attractive trait, right? Because typically self-worth and self-confidence is tied to happiness. It's tied to love. It's tied to trust. It's tied to success, right? And those are all traits that we look for in our partner, right? Ideally, we want somebody who's beautiful on the outside and on the inside. We want somebody who's successful. We want somebody who's healthy. We want somebody who's happy. We want somebody who's, who radiates love and light and joy, right? And typically, we don't really carry those traits if we don't have a high sense of self-worth, if we don't have high self-esteem. So if you are trying to call in this dream relationship of yours, the first and really the only thing that you should be doing as far as on a day-to-day basis, right? As I talked about in the last video, I do believe it's extremely important to get very clear on what you're trying to call in, right? But the most important thing is for you to love yourself, to increase your own sense of self-worth and sense of self-esteem. There's a few ways that you can do this, right? There's actually a million, I don't even know what I just said. There's a million ways you can do this, and it's going to be different for everybody. But I'm going to give you a few ways that work well for me. Now, one of the most important things for me to have a high sense of self-worth is to keep the promises that I make to myself. So if I tell myself that I'm going to work out 5 days a week, I better work out 5 days a week, because if I don't, now all of a sudden I'm not keeping my own word. I'm not keeping integrity with myself, and now I don't trust myself as much. And that's going to cause my self-confidence to go down, right? So keeping the promises that you make to yourself, right? And I apply that same mindset, mentality to a few different areas of my life, right? So I apply it to my workouts, right? I work out and I do what I say I'm going to do in the gym. That helps build my sense of self-worth. That helps build my confidence, right? Same thing with what time I wake up in the morning. I strive to wake up at 6 a.m., if not 5 a.m. Doing that, keeping that promise to myself increases my self-confidence, increases my self-worth, right? Doing the work that I know I need to do. If I tell myself I'm going to put in 4 to 8 hours of work, putting in that work, whatever that day looks like, putting in that work is going to increase my sense of self-confidence, right? So that's just one way, okay? The second tip I have for you is to meditate. Okay, now meditating can look different for everybody. There's 1,000 different ways to meditate. I'm not here to tell you which way is the best or which way you need to do it. But the simple sort of benefit that you get from meditating is this. When you meditate, call it what you want, taking silence, taking time to disassociate from the thousands of thoughts we have every day. When you do that, you're able to look at things objectively. Things being, most importantly, your emotions, right? Your emotions and your thoughts. Because we have something like 6,000 plus thoughts a day. Unfortunately, a lot of those are subconscious, unconscious thoughts. And not every one of those is going to be an empowering thought, right? And if you don't have the tools that you can gain through meditation, you might begin to embody those thoughts more than you should, or more than you would like to, right? So let's say, just a hypothetical example, right? You look in the mirror and you're not pleased with what you see. And then you have the thought of, oh, I'm not attractive, right? Meditating will teach you to look at these thoughts objectively. Instead of identifying with the thought itself and saying, that's my thought, you can look at it objectively and say, oh, wow, look at this silly thought that my ego is trying to get me to think about and make me believe. That's funny. I obviously know that that's not true. I'm very beautiful. I'm perfect just the way I am, right? But unless you have that skill set built of, being able to look at your own thoughts and your ego objectively, it's going to be more difficult to increase your sense of self-worth, right? Because that's just one example, but we have hundreds of thoughts like that a day, chances are. Hundreds of thoughts that are disempowering every single day. But meditating will teach you to look at those thoughts objectively so that you can just let them pass by like a cloud in the sky, right? And by doing that, again, you're going to increase your sense of self-worth. You're going to increase the identity that you have for yourself, thus making you feel more worthy of calling in who and what type of relationship you desire, right? So keeping the promises that you make to yourself, whether it's within your fitness goals, your diet, your business, whatever it is, keeping the promises you make to yourself is going to heavily increase your self-confidence and your self-esteem. Understanding how to look at your thoughts objectively so that you can get rid of some of those silly thoughts, those ego thoughts that kind of pass through your mind that are not serving you, is going to help extremely well as well. And the third thing is just to do things that you love, right? Do some things every single day, whether it's for 10 minutes or for 3 hours, 8 hours, doesn't matter. Take time every single day to do things that you love for you. Take time to make you happy, right? Because most of us, we're working a 9 to 5, we're working a job, we go take care of our body at the gym, right? Which is enjoyable, but really in a way it's kind of just another form of work, let's be honest, right? And so many of us, we go from the beginning of the day to the end of the day without really having actually done anything that brings us joy. And so if you do that Monday through Friday, you're not bringing yourself any joy. You're not going to be vibrating at that state of joy. And if you're not vibrating at that state of joy, it's not going to, you're going to have a harder time calling in somebody who is joyful, right? If that's something that you're after, which I hope that it would be. Right? I don't know anybody that would want to call in somebody who's always angry or sad, right? Most of us enjoy being around happy people because it helps us be happy, which is why doing so yourself will allow you to call in that very thing, right? But you have to take time to do things, whether it's playing music, making music, listening to music, dancing, going outside, hanging out with friends, right? And I don't mean doing things that are going to distract you, like going out and partying and drinking. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that, time and a place for everything, but be aware of where you think you're doing something that makes you feel good, but really you're just doing something to avoid the feelings that you don't want to feel. i.e. being lonely, right? And that brings me to the fourth point, which is you have to, and this is probably the toughest one for a lot of us, but you have to be comfortable being alone. You have to surrender to that and learn how to love your own company. Because chances are, if you don't love your own company, right, you've spent your entire life with yourself. And so if you don't love your own company by now, how do we expect other people to love our company, right? So before you can attract this ideal dream partner of yours, one of the best things that you can do for yourself and for that goal that you're trying to achieve is get comfortable with yourself. Get comfortable with being alone, spending time on your own. Get comfortable with entertaining yourself, right? And, you know, I think that maybe we think that we're better at that than we are until we go spend a bunch of time alone, and then we're like, oh, shoot, I don't really know about this, right? I don't know about this guy. And so it really is really important. You have to be comfortable with yourself, because here's the reason why. If we are not comfortable with being alone, we will always carry a sense of desperation for finding a new relationship or finding that partner, right? If we have a fear of being alone, then we will carry this idea in our head that we need to find somebody, because until we find somebody, we're stuck being alone, and I don't want to be alone, right? Which is going to cause you to come from a sense of desperation. And as we know, the more you push, the more it pushes back, right? And that goes for so many things in life, and relationships is absolutely one of them. I don't think I even have to use this example, but I'm sure you guys are aware of somebody in your life, whether it's been you or your ex-partner or a friend of yours or a family member, who came out of desperation trying to grasp and cling on to a relationship, and all it did is repel the person away, right? And on the flip side of that, and this isn't also necessarily very healthy, but the people that typically, you know, pull back, and maybe they're a little too afraid of a relationship, maybe for whatever reason they feel afraid to, you know, be in a relationship, typically all that's going to do is cause that other person to want them even more, right? And there's obviously an unhealthy balance in that at times, but it's a very powerful tool, and it's not a tool to like manipulate and take advantage of. It's really a tool for you to experience more love and light within your own life, right? I think that we can all agree it would be a great thing to love our own company, to love being around ourselves, because the harsh truth is, it's not actually harsh, but the reality is you're going to spend the rest of your life with yourself, right? So you would think that you would want to enjoy it, want to find joy and love and fun in that. And if you can't do it, how can you expect somebody else to do it, right? We should love ourselves more, much more than anybody else could or can ever, right? So if you were trying to call in this attractive, you know, dream partner of yours, and I mean attractive inside and out, but if you were trying to call this in, like, those are the 4 things that I highly suggest that you begin to do. And you can do these things on a daily basis, right? You can begin keeping the promises that you make to yourself, increasing your self-worth and your sense of self-esteem. You can do that on a daily basis, right? You can meditate on a daily basis so that you can train yourself to disassociate from your thoughts sometimes, right? So that you're not attaching to these disempowering beliefs, right? You can do things that make you feel joy every single day, right? And every single day you can get a little bit better at loving yourself and getting more and more comfortable with being alone, right? So that if and when that person does come along that looks like the perfect dream partner of yours, you're not coming from a sense of desperation. You're not coming from a neediness. You're coming from a place of, hey, I'm really whole and complete on my own. You seem like you're whole and complete on your own. Maybe we can make this thing work. And if it doesn't, that's okay, because I'm fine with being alone. I'm fine on my own. I love myself. I'm happy. I find joy on my own. I would love to make this work, but I don't need it for my happiness, for my own joy, right? And when you can do that, I promise that person is going to look back. If they're in the same space, they're going to look back and feel the same way, right? So I hope you found these tips helpful. I hope there's something new in here that you haven't heard 100 times before. And with that, as always, love you guys. Peace.